Please. All right, thank you. Good evening. I'm Corvallis Advocate Assistant Editor Emily Ratcliffe, and co-moderating with me tonight is our publisher, Steve Schultz, who also serves as president of the City Club of Corvallis. Welcome to tonight's CITYSPEAK Forum. CITYSPEAK Forums are co-presented by the Corvallis Advocate and the City Club of Corvallis. The Advocate offers fresh Corvallis news daily online, these town hall meetings, and extensive events calendars. Our co-presenter, the City Club of Corvallis, is a volunteer-run nonprofit organization that seeks to present a diversity of viewpoints and constructive dialogue. Next Tuesday at 6 p.m., we host a debate among Corvallis' mayoral candidates, and 2 days later, on Thursday, a debate among city council candidates. Tonight, we host Democrat Pat Malone, incumbent county commissioner for position 1, and his challenger, Republican William Kughn. Steve?
Thanks, Emily. Sorry for the delay there, folks. Okay, so we want to say thank you to Peak Sports and to First Alternative Natural Foods Co-op for making CITYSPEAK forums at all available and sponsoring them. We couldn't do it without them, but we also couldn't do it without viewers like you. Without the support of our current subscribers and supporters and donors of various stripe, there's just no way we could do it. For those of you that aren't subscribers, do consider subscribing. There's levels on our website, $10 and $15 monthly. Donations over and above are welcome. Folks, it's an opportunity to support something increasingly rare, local journalism. Having locally run outlets has become a serious rarity. So do please consider subscribing. Emily?
Thanks, Steve. So Democrat Pat Malone is seeking a second term as one of 3 Benton County commissioners. The other 2 commissioners' seats go before voters in another 2 years. Commissioner Malone, could you please tell us about your areas of concentration as commissioner and also your background outside of the commission in about 1 minute or less, please?
Okay, my background is a decades-long effort as a tree farmer, live in the Kings Valley area. As far as areas of concentration, the Justice Center Justice System Improvement Project is kind of a all hands on deck effort, and so I'm involved in that. Probably my main area of specialization within the board is transportation issues, including alternative forms of transportation. One of my goals is to be able to, for people to be able to get around our region without a car. So.
All right, thank you. And Republican Bill Kughn is challenging Mr. Malone. Mr. Kughn, could you please tell us about your background for our viewers and areas of special interest you would have as a commissioner if elected? 1 minute or less to respond, please.
I am 76 years old. I've been married to the same woman for 53 years. I'm a U.S. Navy Vietnam veteran. I strongly believe in the Constitution of the United States. I served my country to support the Constitution. I believe that we should operate governments like I've operated my businesses. I've operated 5 businesses over my lifetime successfully, and a couple unsuccessful, I might add. I've been in business since I was the age of 26, so that's 50 years now. And I've been a developer, a builder, quite frankly, a pretty handy carpenter. Unfortunately, my wife knows that, so I end up doing a lot of things around the house. Pretty proud of my blue collar heritage. And I think that we should operate the county as we would operate a business, not as though it's a trough to go to for money. And I talk to a lot of people in the county, and they have an attitude of us and them. And I don't think that's the way it should be. I think that the people that represent us should be closer to the people, understand their needs, their likes, and represent them, rather than be in a lofty position somewhere that I'm not sure hear what the county people had to say. I know they're upset with their taxes. I know that inflation is up, inflation's up about 8%, and the budget has increased by 18%. We've increased the budget by 50 million. when residents are struggling with house payments, rent, food is up 9 to 15%, increased interest rates, and skyrocketing gasoline. So I think that the county should be more attuned to paying attention to reducing taxes.
Thank you. And in recent polling, Oregonians cited homelessness and crime as the state's two most pressing issues, and Benton County is not exempt. First, what 3 things would you do concerning homelessness in Benton County, and why? Mr. Kughn, I'll start with you for this one. 3 minutes or less to respond to this, please.
I recognize that homelessness is an issue. It is a problem. Also recognize that a third of those people are having problems with drugs and alcohol. A third have mental problems, and that other third are simply homeless because they're down in their luck. I think we have to address the homeless situation. We drive through town when we come into town. Obviously, I'm from South County, and we see trash and tents, etc., and it's unpleasant. And people don't like to walk in the evenings with their children and their wives, especially down by the skate park in Corvallis. I don't think that's right. It's right. I think what we're doing now, although the Hope organization is doing a good job, I think what we're doing now is putting a Band-Aid on something. I think we're doing, a handout instead of a hand up. And I think the county, as I said, is being reactive rather than proactive. I think it's important that we address the homeless issue, but I think we need to do it in a fashion that would get someone a job, like temporary aid to needy families, which finds a job for a person and gets them on the right track so that they can afford to move into a home and be a productive member of society. I just think that there's a job out there if you want to work. There always has been for me. And I, for example, I've never collected a dime of unemployment in my entire life. I've always been able to find work. As I said, I'm a carpenter, I'm a builder, I'm a developer, and I've been doing that for a long time. And I've always been able to find work. And I think it's out there. If someone wants it, they can get it. Thank you.
And could you, in about 30 seconds, actually explain if there are 3 things that you would do to address this issue?
To address, I'm sorry, say it again, Emily.
In about 30 seconds, could you actually list or give 3 specific things that you would do to address the issue of homelessness in the county?
Well, I think we should, the one issue would be to use the temporary aid to needy families. And secondly, we should build more affordable housing, and the county can do that by changing zoning laws and making it easier to build in those areas. And of course, we do need the participation of various churches and volunteer groups that are carrying a lot of the weight now to take care of these people. Yes, we've purchased hotels and we try temporary shelters. These are all good, but something needs to be done more permanent and perhaps temporary housing. For example, there is a program in the county where you can add an additional unit to your property, understanding that you have to comply with various zoning issues, have to have the space, have to be able to hook up the sewer, et cetera. And a lot of those places can rent out so that it's profitable for the person who sets up that building for an additional family unit.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Malone, 3 minutes or less to respond to the question, please.
So 3 things I would do or continue to do to help with the homeless situation. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
And also, why would you do these 3 things?
Well, I guess I could start off by summarizing. I do these three things because I think they've, in various ways, shown progress, promise and progress on the homeless issue. The Hope Board is an effort that's been going on for a little over 3 years, led by Julie Arena, who's done a great job, and through a lot of work, they've come out with 12 recommendations for how to proceed and help solve the homeless situation. And so that gives us a pretty good guideline what to do. We can't do all 12 at once. We're concentrating on number 6, which is getting people housed. And one example of that through Operation Turnkey is the 3rd Street Commons, which is a 28-unit, used to be old motel on 3rd Street, just south of the bridge. And it's a great example of partnerships, local nonprofits. The state provided, I think, approximately $3 million in funding to buy the building, and then local nonprofits, Corvallis Housing First, Andrea Myrie, I think, is in charge of that group, and it's been in operation over a year and shows great promise. And there's plans for phase 2. They have room in the back for an additional units. The core program is a Benton County Health person going out on calls with a Corvallis police person who's trained with being able to deal with people with mental health issues, and will respond to calls that don't require regular law enforcement. So it's our equivalent of the CAHOOTS program that's been operating in Eugene for more than a decade. And then the big one is the Justice System Improvement Project, which will include a much needed new correctional facility where we can do programs for counseling, education, and treatment. And with the space that we have currently, it's just not possible. So okay, I am wrapped up. I hope you will enforce the time limit going forward.
Right, and as we move to consider crime, let's first discuss the Justice Center contemplated for Northeast Corvallis. Do we understand correctly, Mr. Malone, that the county is borrowing $33 million for a new courthouse and district attorney's office, and will go to voters next year for $100 million for a new jail, sheriff's office, crisis center, and transitional housing for inmates? Just a yes or no question, please.
Those numbers are approximately correct. The $100 million, the exact amount for the bond measure next May has not been determined, but it's the numbers that I've seen lately are in that vicinity.
And Mr. Malone, the singular matter of a new jail has come before voters 3 times and has been rejected on each occasion. Does the county have reason to believe the proposal, now adding a crisis center and sheriff's office, will fare better this time? So for instance, the county completed another round of public opinion polling between September 7th and 14th. What percentage of respondents were aware of the proposal, and what percentage was supportive? About a minute or less to respond, please.
I don't have those numbers right in front of me. They have been distributed, and you probably have them. At this point, I think we have a good chance of success. Part of the reason for that is we have been engaging with the community for over 4 years, developing this facilities and programs that the community needs. And going back to the homeless issue, this will be another help for the homeless situation. So because there is a revolving door for some, we have a fair amount of repeat offenders that are not getting the treatment that they need currently because of lack of space in the jail next to the courthouse.
Right. And Mr. Malone, what is your viewpoint concerning the building of the new Justice Center? About 3 minutes or less to respond to this one, please.
Okay. I'm fully in support. Like I say, this is not something that's been developed in a few months. It's been developed over several years, starting in 2018 with forums held to have the community help us say what their priorities are. And Ari Basil Wagner led the efforts early on. And so it's more of a comprehensive solution to some of our problems than have been put before the voters previously. So the idea is a correctional facility will be part of the program, but it's more than that. You mentioned the crisis center, and that's an important component that has been missing to date, and we're on track. I think the crisis center is in the final design phase, and hopefully we'll start construction on the corner of 4th and Van Buren. We have the site, and so it's a matter of finalizing the design and then getting going on that. So that's definitely in the works. We know that that's a critical part of the overall helping people that are in crisis, give them a place, give them temporary shelter, and be able to get some assessment and hopefully solve some of their problems so that they will no longer be homeless, and connect them with some of the resources that are available in our area. So that's another very important piece. What we have currently as far as facilities is, if you're having a problem, we will take you to jail or to the emergency room. And we need more options than that. And the crisis center will be an important part of that. And a new, larger correctional facility will also be a part of our solution to people having problems. So I think we've at this point we've got a good plan, and we are starting to execute it. So.
All right, thank you. And your response to all of this, Mr. Kughn, and if you have 3 minutes or less to respond, but if you would like to take another 30 seconds since we didn't get a chance to ask you for your response on the last two questions, you're welcome to take that.
Good. I'm going to try and remember all the questions you had, but it's the crisis, not the crisis center, but the jail. I agree that we need a new jail. Our current system of a revolving door where criminals in, criminals out simply doesn't work. It's not good for the law-abiding citizens of the county. I question whether a bond, given that it has failed 3 times, whether it would succeed a 4th time in these current economic situations. A total of $100 million could be split up. We don't need really to move the DA's office and other offices. We could have just the jail. That could be reduced. And if the bond doesn't pass, and I don't think it will, because I don't think the citizens in this current situation will approve that bond. I just don't think it's going to work. Failed 3 times before, as I said. So if it doesn't, what's the plan B? Now, the county's already entered into agreements, and operation is trying to get the piece of property over by HP. Well, that may or may not be a good situation. It sounds like it's not at this point, because the seller evidently doesn't want to sell. There are 2 other options. One is over by the fairgrounds at the old mill site, and the other one is down by the airport. And I've asked county officials about that, and they've said there were issues that negated that, it would have to be mitigated. But it sounds like the current situation going to HP has its problems as well. But the bottom line is, can we really afford, and I read something today on the Gazette Times that not $100 million, but $167 million. And if we're going to borrow that money, that will increase, for example, the average homeowner that, not the average homeowner, but the homeowner that has a $250,000 house will increase their taxes $138. Well, there aren't that many $250,000 houses in the county or the city. Prices for real estate, for real estate have skyrocketed, and they're not 250,000. So we're looking at a dramatic increase in property taxes. We're already going to experience a 3% increase when the budget has increased 18%. I think we need to look at other options. And in talking with the county at various meetings that I've had, there are other options. There is lottery money, which will not tax the citizens of the county. The other problems that are related to the budget at the county and this Justice Center are that we have a situation where only 20% of the budget of the county comes from revenue, direct revenue from taxes and levies. The balance of it, the other balance, the 80% comes from various grants. What if the political environment changes and those grants go away? The county will be in dire straits. We'll be in bad shape. And the county will be asking the citizens to come up with some more money, more tax levies, et cetera. Now, I don't think at this time of bad economic situations, we should take on another responsibility. My situation in business has always been, if I don't have the money for it, don't spend it. And I think that's what we should do at the county. Again, we should run the county like a business. Time out. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Malone, your response in about 1 minute or less, please.
Okay. The 250,000 is assessed value, not fair market value. And so, Bill, I think you need to check some of your facts and figures, that one in particular, and we will do a better job of explaining that. And it is works out to approximately $140 per year for the average homeowner in Benton County. So assessed value, not fair market value. And as far as the grants, I think those numbers are way off. We are very careful when we get grants from the federal government, whether it's for the health department or for roads, that to make a difference between one-time money and money that is likely to continue. So this Armageddon that Bill is talking about, the county is well aware of different funding streams and careful not to put ourselves in a vulnerable position. And we have been doing this for decades, Bill.
Okay, and Mr. Kughn, last response on this topic in 1 minute or less, please.
Well, I got that figure from your people at the county, Pat. That number was $70 million of the $363 million. And I guess the biggest question is, what justifies an increase of $50 million in this budget versus the last budget? I just can't understand where we're going to pull that out of the hat, especially since we're going to ask the county, the residents of the county, to come up with another $100 million bond issue. And the number that you mentioned, I said $138, you said $148, even worse, as far as the individual taxpayer.
I said 140, Bill.
What did I say? 138, I said, I think.
Right.
$38 a year.
I think we shouldn't have to argue over $2.
I understand that.
We should be moving on to the next question. But moving on to the topic of crime, according to the Benton County Sheriff's Office, for the month of July, there was a 100% increase in aggravated assaults on people in the county from last year. Of those assaults, only 60% had been cleared by the end of the month. What do you feel we could do to address this issue? Pat, I'll start with you. 2 minutes or less to respond, please.
Yeah, I would question going on 1 month's statistics. They can bounce around some and have some explanation why why it's up. Students are in town or out of town or things like that. So I think that's not a very accurate way of describing the situation. What would I do about that? Well, I'll go back to, we need a correctional facility. We have a jail. We need a correctional facility where we have room to house people that should be off the streets and not be sending them to Polk County or the Dalles like we're currently doing. That's just taking people away from their support system, their families, their friends, is not a good way to work on the crime problem. So I think at the key, a new correctional facility that will have be big enough to have programs, counseling programs, drug treatment programs, education, so that we can get the people off the street that we need to do that, and then get them, figure out what the specific problems are with them, and do a better job of dealing with them.
All right, and Bill, 2 minutes or less to respond, please.
Well, it's an interesting question. I believe, firstly, that what we've done in Oregon is we've legalized drugs. And what I hear from law enforcement is that essentially their hands are tied. So someone is doing meth in their vehicle. What is the officer to do? Well, first of all, he can arrest him, but he's in his vehicle, so that's considered his home. The problem is, if he does arrest him, then there's a revolving door. He's back out on the street. And how many of those people in that statistic that you mentioned, Emily, how many of those have been in jail before and been released prematurely? I think we've tied the hands of law enforcement. How can they enforce the law when the citizens have said, well, drugs are legal? Well, they thought that was a good idea, but that's certainly not the case. I've never done drugs, and I'm pretty sure Pat and the rest of you folks have never done drugs. Well, what's the problem there? The problem is they're readily available and they're legal. So if we tie the hands of law enforcement, how can we criticize the fact that the crime rate is up when there's a revolving door that they go in one side and out the other side? I just don't understand how someone can complain about that when they've legalized drugs and tied the hands of law enforcement. I would strongly support the sheriff's office and the Corvallis Police Department to figure out a way to get around those issues and make it possible for them to arrest someone who's violating. I don't think I would want to take my wife or my grandchild or my son and his wife along that 3rd Street Commons area and such in the evening, or down by the skate park. I don't think it's safe. They get down there with 2 officers now, not just one. That's because it's not safe. Why is it not safe? Because there's a situation of recidivism for these criminals. In one door, out the other door, into the court, show up, don't show up for court. They get them a no-show and they get a string of those. And what are they going to do about that? Well, arrest them again for a no-show, out the back door. So what I've said again is we've tied hands of law enforcement. We've not supported our police. And now
since we're out of time, I'm sorry. I'll go on to the next question, which is also related, which is that also from the sheriff's office, the number of DUI incidents has more than doubled. What do you expect can be done at the county level to dissuade people from driving impaired in the area? Mr. Kughn, I'll start with you. 2 minutes or less to respond, please.
I'm sorry, you want to start with me? I didn't hear you. Very good. Well, there are various kinds of drugs, and one of them is alcohol. Now, personally, I don't drink. My wife loves wine. She drinks, and I don't have a problem with that. But if I had so much as a half a glass of wine, and I've done this before, I'm pretty much one or two beers a year type person. Only when it's an extremely hot day. And my wife says the only time I drink those is when it's 99 degrees out, and it's the last one in the refrigerator. So I don't understand drunk driving. If I even had a half a glass, I would call someone. I'd call my wife. I'd call a taxi. So I just can't support someone who drinks and drives. And I believe more people are killed by automobiles and cars than are killed by guns in this country. And it's because we tolerate that. And they get a DUI. Well, they get another DUI. And of course, they're out on bail rather. So we have to address problems, not just hard drugs, but alcohol and such, and have programs that help people not do those kinds of things to get them in the environment where they end up in jail. Because if you end up in jail with a DUI, you've affected not only yourself, but your family, your business, all those folks around you. So once again, I'm just not in favor of this revolving door policy. And I think drunk driving has a lot to do with that. They're out on bail. Do they get a second one? Sure. A lot of them get a second chance at driving drunk, and they take it, and they're back in jail. So I can't handle that, and I can't understand why someone would do that.
All right, and Mr. Malone, your response, 2 minutes or less, please.
Yeah, Emily, what time period are you talking about that the DUIs have doubled?
I believe within the past year or so.
Sounds a little vague. The reason I say that is I've had a meeting with the sheriff in the last week and kind of went over the state of the county, and he did not mention that as one of the top problems. But so I would check what time period things have doubled. And if people are impaired in driving, there ought to be consequences, and I think there are. I think the penalties for drunk driving, impaired driving are fairly serious. And as far as I know, both Corvallis and the sheriff take this issue very seriously. So I'd like to see a little more information on your statistics, just what time period you're talking about, and because there may be an explanation why things have increased that much. Your last statistics took a 1 month view, and I think, and this one might be similar to that, where if you take a quarter or 6 months, the statistics may smooth out a little bit and have some explanation why there's blips here or there. But it's serious. And once again, I'll go back to the correctional facility. If somebody needs to be locked up, or the crisis center that hopefully we will have by the end of next year, we will have places to deal with people that are impaired. So stay tuned.
Okay. And I think I just got an update. It looks like those statistics actually came from between July 2021 and July 2022. But moving on to the next question, during our State of the City Speak earlier this year, Stan Ojero informed viewers that waiting times are between 4 to 5 weeks for folks seeking treatment for substance abuse and mental health crises at Benton County Health. What would you do to reduce these wait times? Mr. Malone, I'll start with you. 1 minute or less to respond, please.
Yeah, it's a serious problem. There are staffing issues throughout the county government. Corvallis Transit's looking for drivers. We are trying to scale up our mental health efforts, but it takes a while to get trained people, and sometimes people start out in county government and can get a better paying job in the private sector, and so there's some turnover. But we recognize the problem, and I think we're making progress, and I think people are know that this is a field you can go into, and jobs are waiting, but it takes time to train people.
All right, and Mr. Kughn, your response, 1 minute or less, please.
Well, I have this discussion with my wife occasionally that alcohol is a drug, not unlike other drugs that are out there that create problems. And either you have a drinking problem or you don't. And I think with the current situation of COVID and other situations, I think that what we see is people resorting to drinking or drugs because of their situation, losing a job, losing a family member, whatever it is. And we can't legislate to anyone whether they should drink, not drink, or abuse that. As I said, it's a drug, it's regulated. Drugs are regulated in general. You can't go out and just buy a drug. It's illegal, except for now we have marijuana facilities. I don't use that. I never have and probably never will. And I don't need that. I don't drink, so I don't think it's necessary for us to have situations where we condone drinking and driving. If a person goes out there, and
I'm sorry, I'm going to go ahead and cut you off there because we are over time. I'll go on to the next question. What is your view of the county's current budget and the way that the county might operate in the future from a fiscal standpoint? Mr.
sorry, would you repeat that, please? I'm sorry.
Oh, sure. What is your view of Benton County's current budget and the way that the county might operate in the future from a fiscal standpoint? And Mr. Kughn, I'll start with you. 2 minutes or less to respond, please.
Well, you're on to one of my favorite subjects. I think the county budget is overextended. Again, the budget increased $50 million when we're in such a recession situation, when people are struggling. I think that we need to tighten the county belt, look at programs that might be shortened. I don't think we're looking at the budget hard enough. I know in a lot of federal and state and county situations, various departments, and I've been assured that this is not the case with Benton County, but you have a department that's out there that has a budget, and they get to the end of the fiscal year and someone says, well, if we don't spend this money, we're not going to get it next year. So they spend the money, and in some cases recklessly. I'm not sure whether that happens. I hope it doesn't happen with the county, but I think we could eliminate or reduce some programs to make sure that we stay living within our means. And I don't think the county is doing that right now. And the county is going to get us for another 3% tax increase and the bond issue for $100 million if it passes. It's going to be a burden on people. It's going to be a burden on people mostly that can't afford it. So I think that once again, we ought to operate the county like you would operate a business. If we don't have it, we shouldn't spend it. And once again, the bulk of the money that the county gets is grants. And I'm just leery of that, whether that's permanent, whether it'll be there. And what if it doesn't? What's plan B? Just like the Justice Center. I think a new jail is needed, but I think the county is going about the funding in the wrong way. And I'm opposed to eminent domain. I can see in situations where it may be for the good of the people, but eminent domain to build this Justice Center and go to court on this issue when there are other options available just don't seem logical to me. But once again, we should watch the pennies and the dollars will take care of themselves. And I don't think we're doing that now with the county.
All right, and Mr. Malone, your response, 2 minutes or less, please.
Okay, and this is county budget in general.
That is correct.
Okay, I'm as a private business person, I know about budgets and being careful with money. My job as commissioner does not entail looking at finances on a daily basis, but I do keep track. I would be real curious to hear from Bill what programs he wants to reduce. Part of the reason for the expansion of the county budget in the last year or two is COVID and federal dollars coming in to the health department and ARPA dollars. And so just, I guess as a budget person, Bill's complaining about, well, it's gone up $50 million. Well, what did we buy? At least as important as the dollar amount that is being discussed. We have a new CFO, relatively new, Rick Krager, who is savvy. He's worked for the state, and I really appreciate his view on budgeting and looking for other revenue sources that can help Benton County solve some of our problems, whether it's the health department or roads or new construction. So I think we're careful with budgeting, and like I mentioned earlier, and I'm not sure Bill heard it, but with his concerns about grants, we are concerned about one-time money and are careful not to hire permanent staff with dollars like that. So I think the county does a good job of budgeting.
Great. And then what is your view on Benton County's future regarding transportation? Mr. Malone, I'll start with you on this one. 2 minutes or less to respond, please.
Okay. Transportation, we need to take care of our existing roads, which is a challenge. Costs have gone up quite a bit in the last year, and our dollars aren't going as far as we were planning. But one of my goals as commissioner is to make it possible for people to get around our region without a car, whether that means bike, walking, paths, transit. You know, all options should be on the table, and we should continue to make sure alternative forms of transportation are in the mix, and also making it safer for people on bikes and walking to get around. We've inherited a system that was designed with the car in mind, and good luck to people that were walking and biking, and we're gradually changing that. But I look forward to some of the federal dollars. Congressman DeFazio has been a champion for getting dollars into the state for transportation. We will miss him, but I think he's put us on a good route, and Benton County needs to pay attention to funding opportunities. And I'm on a number of transportation committees. Just had one this afternoon, the 3-county area commission on transportation. That's Lynn, Benton, and Lincoln counties. So I am familiar with this subject, and I will continue to do what I can to improve our transportation options in Benton County.
All right, and Mr. Kughn, your response, 2 minutes or less, please.
Well, I think the wish that everyone be a bicycle transportation society in our county and Corvallis is unrealistic. We are an automotive society. I don't remember seeing someone going to the grocery store with their children on the back of the bicycle hauling 3 bags of groceries. They're going to take their car. And I think the boondoggle that we experienced a few years back buying the branch line was a mistake. I think putting bicycle paths from Corvallis down to my area in Monroe is a big mistake. It'll be too expensive. And the deal that was made was just unrealistic. I would like to have been on the railroad side on that deal. Sounds like it worked out pretty well for them. And in addition, it's not realistic to have a project that benefits very few people at the cost of many. I appreciate the fact of riding bikes. That's a good thing. I get that. But we are not a bicycle society. That's fine for riding around town in the evening and going to the store to get one or two things. But see, practically, it's just not going to work. And in addition, excuse me, the transportation system is, to my mind, we just couldn't operate more badly than we already are. In Corvallis, for example, you ride the bus for free. That system, that transportation system, and in most cities across this country and counties, the transportation system buses are losers. They don't provide any revenue. They're at the expense, and not that many people ride them. Yes, the college students probably ride them to go to the grocery store, that sort of thing. But as for the bicycle pass, I don't think they're realistic. The farmers are opposed to that. They don't want folks on there while they're harvesting or spraying, et cetera. And here again, I don't believe in eminent domain. And I've been on Highway 34 and that bike path on Highway 34, and I've seen one or two bicycles on that every time I've been out there. It just doesn't work at the expense of many, only benefit a few. Just not a good idea.
Right, and we hear a lot of concerns that Benton County residents have about the expansion of the Coffin Butte landfill. Where do you stand on this issue? Mr. Kughn, could I start with you on this question? 2 minutes or less, please.
Absolutely. I'm not sure what we should do about Coffin Butte, but I do know it has to be there. And last night I discussed Coffin Butte, and I said that the problem there is that other counties, cities, locales are using Coffin Butte. Are they paying their fair share, if not more, at Coffin Butte? When I first came to Corvallis, it was a plateau, not very high. Now it's a mountain. But where are we going to go? You have a situation in most cities and counties where it's NIMBY, not in my backyard. I don't want a prison in my backyard. I don't want a dump in my backyard. So where's it going to go? I think you're stuck with what you have at Coffin Butte, and you have to expand it and take advantage of the methane gas, for example, that provides some energy. But I don't know where else we could go. And are we charging other communities enough to use Coffin Butte? So I think we're stuck with what we have. And the studies that were done, I looked at one study that was $25,000 to study the situation at Coffin Butte. And it was in the budget, and I sat in a commission meeting listening to that. And the conclusion was, we need more study. Well, gee, I could have done that for $100. And I just don't see where those kinds of things, spending that kind of money, benefited us in any way. But once again, Coffin Butte is where it is, and it is what it is, and we're stuck with it. I don't think we have any place to go. And there's a committee out there that does this, and I heard that. They're studying the Coffin Butte situation, and they're all noted individuals with experience in various fields. I get that. What's the bottom line? Bottom line is you're probably stuck with Coffin Butte. Charge more to other counties to use the Coffin Butte to bring their trash there. So if, for example, there are 90,000 residents in the county and they generate 1 pound of trash a day, 90,000 pounds of trash.
All right, and Mr. Malone, your response, 2 minutes or less, please.
Yeah, it's my understanding that we cannot charge other counties more for accessing Coffin Butte, but we looked into that a while back, and there's those pesky state laws and regulations that the county has to follow and the republic has to follow. Currently, the Talking Trash Work Group, yep, that's its real name, is a 16-member committee or work group that is going over some of the questions like there will not be another landfill in Western Oregon. And is that, there hasn't been another one built in the last 30 years. I would call that a trend, but that is a question that the work group is working on, including what kind of lifespan is at the current facility, and what would expansion to the south add to the lifespan. We definitely need to do a better job of recycling. I hope we can get a facility for taking construction debris, which is 15 to 20%. And those are real numbers. My opponent, I think, sometimes makes up numbers. 15 to 20% of the volume in the landfill is construction debris that can be separated out and reused, repurposed, and we need to have that part of the discussion going forward. So I'm trying to keep an open mind and have some questions answered before I make any kind of decision on expansion.
And before we go into audience questions, Mr. Malone, I apologize for neglecting to ask you this when I had initially posed the question to you, but regarding the public opinion polling between September 7th and 14th, you said that you didn't have the numbers in front of you, but would you be able to have those numbers for us by the weekend?
Oh, absolutely. I've got them in a file here.
Okay.
But and they're fairly positive. It depends what's included in the plan, but it's definitely well over 50% support at this point, and a number of undecideds in the mix. So I would be much more optimistic than Bill about the prospects for the bond measure next May.
All right. Thank you both. I will now hand it over to Steve for audience questions.
Thank you, Emily. So first question, and I'll remind audience members that they can contact us with questions during the remainder of the evening, about the next 20 minutes. They can hit us up with a question, CITYSPEAK@CorvallisAdvocate.com. That's CITYSPEAK@CorvallisAdvocate.com. Okay, let's move to an environmental question. There's been some record fines throughout the state, and a few in Benton County, from the DEQ, state DEQ, as of late. What are your beliefs as to what the county can and should do with somebody that either is a persistent violator or has been quite egregiously in violation? I'm going to start with Mr. Malone on this subject. About 2 minutes, Pat.
Okay. Do you have specific examples that you're?
I'm just going off of the question from the viewer.
Oh,
there's not anything specific here.
Okay, I'm trying to think of violators in our area. I know up by Boardman, there's real concerns and big fines. I'm not aware of current DEQ fines for people in our area, but I definitely could have missed something. If that's true, we have an environmental health department that Daniel Reddick heads up. They're the same folks that inspect restaurants and that sort of thing, but they have a broader task, and so I would check with them and make sure there's good coordination, conversation between the state DEQ and our local environmental folks who don't have the same horsepower and legal standing that the DEQ does, but there definitely needs to be cooperation between the county and the state level. And I don't know if this gets into Coffin Butte and the annual, I think it's annual DEQ inspection of the Coffin Butte landfill.
Okay, and I'll move over to Mr. Kughn, 2 minutes. Persistent, if there were a hypothetical persistent violator, in Benton County, what actions might you take?
Well, I would think that if someone is persistent and disobeying the law on a regular basis consistently for years, then it would be appropriate that they're fined. I know there are situations to the north of us in Lynn County where they're trying to approve Foster Farms chicken ranches, and there are people who are opposed to that. There's always going to be somebody opposed to that, as I said earlier, in NIMBY, not in my backyard. And down south in Lane County, they had that facility that treated utility poles. Well, you know, folks complained about that, about the smell and et cetera, et cetera. And yes, they were violating, and yes, they probably deserved to be fined. But those folks knew that when they moved in. And it's just like building close to an airport and then complaining about the airport noise. I'm not so sure all of it's justified, but if they're a consistent violator, then they should be fined. To me, it's pretty clear and simple. But I'm sure that our regulators are doing a good job. Situations where I don't think they are. If a business has been there multiple years and it's a minor offense, maybe it needs to be looked at. But in general, if they're a habitual offender, then of course they should be fined.
I was going to wait a minute to ask this one, but I guess you kind of opened the door to it, Mr. Kughn. Right, SIO, they are looking to build these large chicken processing plants. If somebody were to propose, for instance, within a couple of miles of your home, one of these plants, what would your actions be as a commissioner?
Well, I think personally would be different than being a commissioner. In general, I would have to opt for the benefit of the citizens of the county rather than myself. I think that's what I would have to do. As for myself, I would have to know the specifics of that. And if they were going to build one next door to me, I don't think that's going to happen because all of these are 5-acre plots. But given your hypothetical situation, I'm not so sure I would like that. But if it's for the benefit of most of the people, I'd have to review it and see what my position would be at the time.
Okay, and then Mr. Malone?
I have dairies, Steve, I have dairies around me. I have 2 dairies nearby. And not to try and be a wise guy, but I don't get a whiff of the dairy air. If the wind blows, okay, fine. Well, I knew that when I was here and when I moved here. And as I said, there are 2 dairies within 3 miles of me. And certainly there is some issues there that could be polluters and such. And I'm sure they have probably been fined for disposal of waste, et cetera. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm sure they have to deal with that. So I do have something in my backyard, not directly in my backyard, but I live in the country.
Mr. Malone?
Okay.
And I'll give you 2 minutes.
Okay. I'm a big supporter of our land use laws. I live in the country in exclusive farm use zoned area, and I have some colleagues in the Christmas tree business that live in the Salem area and been there for decades, and then there's houses around them, and it's our land use laws started in the early 1970s, Senate Bill 100 to preserve farm ground. And I am a strong supporter of these laws. The situation you're talking about, I know there's other large existing chicken breeding facilities that have been there. So as far as I would go back to what are the land use regulations in my area, and I don't think they would be allowed. And there is controversy about the scale in, I think they're in Marion County, and so I think there is some looking at the current land use laws and seeing if they're adequate. And I think that's as much as I know on the subject. So Yeah, we've had interesting neighbors in Kings Valley, and then we had Buffalo out here for a while, and so neighbors are important. We had a marijuana slash hemp farm next door that wasn't real popular, but was kind of legal till they got raided. Okay.
Okay, got to run for time there, Pat. Okay, then next question is this: do you feel that County Sheriff's Department is adequately trained as a law enforcement agency in terms of today's requirements for mental health? And well, and in terms of the current viewpoint in terms of BLM. I'm kind of tortured how to ask this. So it is a 300, 400 word question. I'm doing the best I can with it. So in terms of racial equity and in terms of sensitivity to mental health concerns in the community, do you believe the current Sheriff's Department is prepared and able? I will go with Mr. Kughn first.
I met with the sheriff, Steve, and I think he's done a great job. I think those officers are very well trained. I think almost every one of those officers is a college graduate, and they go through extensive training. Do we need to add someone as far as mental health? Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea, but are they adequately trained? Good Lord, absolutely yes.
Okay, and then as to the subject of racial equity?
I don't know that we have a problem in Benton County.
Okay, Mr. Malone. And about as brief as well, please.
Okay. The Sheriff Van Arsdale, I think, is doing a great job. He's managed to fill, I think, all the patrol slots, which is a real challenge in this environment. I don't think currently they are well trained in dealing with people with mental health issues and maybe in crises, and that's where the core program, crisis outreach and engagement that's started July of 21. That's one person from.
Is that still in development, and you feel it needs more development?
I think it's proven to be effective. It's been in effect over a year, and it was just two people. One from the
good enough, not good enough is what I think the viewer is driving at.
Oh, it's a start.
Okay. And then racial equity.
It needs to be scaled up.
Then racial equity.
What about racial equity?
Do you believe that the current force, Sheriff's Office, is well versed enough and concerned enough in terms of racial equity?
I think all of us can do better. There's not a lot of diversity in the sheriffs. I'm mostly familiar with patrol, but like I said earlier, it's a real challenge to, I think the sheriff is doing good just to fill slots, to have a full complement of patrol deputies and also parole and probation and the correction staff. So
okay, we'll move from there. The current advisory board selected to work with the jail system improvement plan. The majority of members are over 65. Is that of concern for you? I will start with Mr. Kughn. Just really yes or no, and maybe why in about 30 seconds.
Well, I think with age comes wisdom. I don't think it's a problem. You said the average person is over 65. Is that what I heard you say?
That is what the viewer is saying.
Why would that be a problem? I don't understand that question. I don't see why that's a problem. I think as you get older, you get wiser, you get more patient. Don't talk to my wife, but I think you get more patient, and I don't have a problem with that. I really don't understand that.
Okay, and then Mr. Malone.
Which committee is this, Steve?
Apparently the JSIP advisory community.
Oh, no, okay. A lot of our volunteer committees are filled by retired people, and it's less than ideal. In order to represent the community, you need all points of view, and over 65 is great, but younger people of color, and it's just a challenge to recruit people. So
okay, so I think viewers probably understand your differences sense about that. We're getting low on time. You'll notice I'm kind of pushing for time here. Recently, the Board of Commissioners chose a construction company for some of the justice system project, and it's not a local company, and there were metrics applied to it, I assume, objectively. In retrospect, Mr. Malone, should more emphasis have been put on trying to select a local company, or maybe the metrics changed to put more weight to select a local company? Yes, no, and why in about 30 seconds, and then I will move to Mr. Kughn.
okay, I need to reframe that a little bit. It was not the construction company. It was I think a project manager. And
I too believe you were correct.
So there was a 3-person committee that had, I saw the final scorecard, and I feel comfortable that we chose the best outfit. I was not involved in.
So comfortable with it.
Yeah, I mean.
Okay, and then Mr. Kughn?
I don't understand the problem with having the best person for the job, regardless of where they're from. To me, that makes sense to use the best one for the job and give someone credit because they're in a particular area. I think that makes it prejudicial. I don't think that's fair. I think you should use whoever can do the best job. The problem with low bidders is when people went to the moon, they said the good news and the bad news here is everything on the spaceship was built by the low bidder. Well, that might be the case, but as far as choosing a construction manager, you need to have someone who's experienced, done that kind of work before, and not make this an experiment for them. And if they come from out of the area, so be it.
Okay, I'm going to move to closing statements. I'm going to give each of you 60 seconds. It was a coin flip at the Advocate in the beginning of the day. And so, Mr. Malone, you will be first with closing, and then Mr. Kughn, you will also have 60 seconds. And the floor is yours, Pat.
Okay, thanks, Steve. The job of commissioner is about listening, researching options, and charting the best course for Benton County. I have the skills, energy, and experience to continue to do this job. I have the long-time relationships with local, state, and federal officials who can help Benton County solve our important challenges. I'm optimistic about Benton County's future, and I've been doing the job, and I'm ready to continue. My promise to you is I will continue in my efforts representing all of Benton County. I like this job, and I ask for your continued support and your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
And with time left over, Mr. Malone, thank you for being brief. And Mr. Kughn, up to 1 minute.
Thank you. I think my priority when elected to county commissioner position would be the budget. I would manage the money as I would manage a business. I would make sure, as I said before, to watch the pennies so that the dollars will take care of themselves. I think that if we do that, We will operate within the budget. We will spend only what we have. And I think we should be very careful about these various grant programs. The jail is an important issue to me, but I'm doubtful about the way it's funded. I'm doubtful about not splitting up the jail from the DA's office, et cetera. I think we have county-owned facilities that can be used for that the county already owns and can refurbish and not be at the expense of full brand new construction. I think we need to pay attention to the sheriff and the Corvallis Police Department to make sure they have all the tools that they need. And finally, I would say, if you're happy with the way things are, if you're happy with your taxes, if you don't think you can, if you think you can afford more taxes and you think you can afford a levy, then I'm probably not your guy. But if you think you want to change, if you think you want somebody that's thriftier than what the current situation is, I'm probably your guy. So I would appreciate your vote. Thank you very much. I've never done this before, and I hope to do this successfully, and I'll do my best. I'll appreciate your vote.
Mr. Kughn and Mr. Malone, thank you both for participating this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Please do hang out for past the all clear so we can speak with you both for a moment.
There you go.
And then other than that, I do want to remind our viewers that there are debates next week as well for Corvallis Mayor and Corvallis City Council. Schedules on our website. Beyond that, I also want to remind viewers that the 18th of this month is the last day to register to vote. And we, of course, would like to encourage you to please, if you're not registered, do register. Again, thank you, Mr. Malone and Mr. Kughn. And with that, Emily.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Steve. Also, we want to extend a big thanks to our Corvallis Advocate staff and all of the work they do behind the scenes to make these CITYSPEAK town halls possible. Please check our website for updates on upcoming CITYSPEAKs as well as archives of past CITYSPEAKs. And again, thanks to Peak Sports and First Alternative Natural Foods Co-op for helping to make this series possible. The CITYSPEAK is now adjourned. Good night, everyone.